Hey guys, it's Layla. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am bringing you not one, not two, but three game-changing tips for moisture retention. And if you have high porosity, this is your video. If you are familiar with this channel and myself, then you know that I have low porosity hair. So naturally, the majority of my content, the majority of the information I share is conducive to those who have low porosity hair like myself. However, so many of you guys out there have high porosity hair, and I think that is why I get so many questions regarding moisture retention. As much as a lot of you are finding my moisturizing routine, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. As much as you guys are finding that helpful, there's still so many of you who are still struggling. Straight into the video. Tip number one, naturally, it's so important to know your porosity. I know it goes without saying, but up until now, so many of us still fail to see the relevancy of knowing your porosity and how much of an impact porosity has on your hair care journey. So if you're still wondering what your porosity is, there are loads of tests out there that you can take at home in order to determine what your porosity is. If you purchased my hair growth guide, Journey to 6 inches, then I do share like a few ways that you can check your porosity there. However, a simple Google search can help you too. So high porosity hair can be dull in appearance. It's not usually as reflective, as glossy, as shiny as low porosity hair, and this is because naturally the cuticles are not laying flat. So they're not laying flat, which means there's less of a surface area to reflect light. High porosity hair also tends to be dry. It physically feels dry and dehydrated, and it also tends to absorb all the products, everything tends to absorb. However, you're still left with hair that feels quite dehydrated. Now, the cuticles essentially have two major roles to play when it comes to your hair. The cuticle protects the hair from external factors, whether that is mechanical, which is anything caused by you, yourself and you, or environmental, so the sun, the wind, the elements, pollution, all the stuff that we're doing to the world that the world hates. All of these factors, that's what your cuticle is there to do. It's also there, and it determines the rate and the amount at which water enters and leaves the hair. So when you have high porosity, you either have less of the cuticle layer intact, or it's raised and just disheveled, essentially. Hence why you lose water at the rate that you do, and hence why that your hair can become very dehydrated. So that's the first point. That's the first one. That's the first game-changing tip, guys, okay? You need to know your porosity. Which brings me on to our sponsor for today's video, which is Surfshark VPN. I know that particularly during this pandemic season, or during the season of life, I have turned my wash day into a whole complete spa day. I like to watch things online, and I recently found out that Girlfriends is coming back, guys. And then there was the downer because it's coming to Netflix USA. However, with Surfshark, I'm able to access that content. Surfshark is an app and browser extension that lets you place your laptop or phone anywhere in the world, and it lets you access the internet as if you were in that country. So basically, I'll be able to go on Netflix USA and watch Girlfriends, guys. I can't even tell you, I'm so gassed. I'm so friggin' gassed. This lets you access and unblock websites and content that you may not usually be able to see. It also adds an extra layer of security when you're online to keep your password, photos, videos, etc. safe. And this literally means that I'm able to access content, videos, shows, all the great stuff that I want on Netflix that I wouldn't be able to get because I am in the UK. And it also means that wherever I am in the world, even when I'm traveling or using my phone, I'm able to still access things. All I'd have to do is change my location, and I'm able to access a bunch of different streaming services, 15 different Netflix libraries and content libraries all over the world. It bypasses censorship everywhere. With Surfshark, you can access any content from anywhere, and it liberates your internet browsing by unblocking websites and bypassing geo restrictions. You can use my code FUSION to get 85% off plus 3 additional months for free. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to yourself. And I will link everything below in the description box for you guys to check out. Tip number 2. One characteristic of our hair that directly correlates with our porosity is actually the elasticity of the hair. And I feel like this is one thing that isn't usually spoken about when it comes to porosity, but actually your porosity affects the elasticity of your hair. Essentially, your elasticity, or in theory, should be able to give you an idea of how porous your hair is. But once again, like I said previously, porosity, like everything else, is a spectrum, so it does get a little bit tricky. However, hair is elastic and it should be able essentially to stretch, okay, not all the way, but it should be able to stretch to a certain degree without snapping off. Dehydrated hair, hair that is highly porous and prone to being dehydrated, doesn't have elasticity, doesn't have the right amount of elasticity, therefore it's not able to stretch without snapping. So if your hair does that, then you're getting a lot more breakage because you're not retaining moisture, your elasticity is low, your hair's snapping, your hair's breaking, your ends are crisping. Now, a great way to improve the elasticity of your hair, especially if you have high porosity, is through protein treatments. Yay! I feel like YouTube literally sacrifices my life. Okay, you guys sacrifice me whenever I bring up the importance of moisture protein balance. If you have high porosity, it's essential that you maintain regular protein treatments, and by regular I mean regular for your tolerance. Okay, if porosity is a spectrum, like I mentioned, then of course not everybody with porous hair needs the same amount of protein treatment intervals. I'm hoping that I'm making sense, because I make sense in my mind. But it's essential for you guys to do protein treatments to improve the elasticity of your hair. This will in turn reduce breakage from all factors, whether mechanical or environmental. Hair that has the correct amount of elasticity is malleable, is soft, okay, because essentially what the protein does is that the protein fills in the gaps that are missing. When these gaps are now filled in, your hair is stronger, your hair behaves better, and actually what you find is if you do have high porosity after a protein treatment, your hair does become more reflective, and that's because that surface layer where it had all those gaps has now been filled in, essentially temporarily, through the protein treatment. There are plenty of deep conditioners out there that you guys can buy that do have protein in them, protein treatments. There are vegan ones, there are all natural ones, there are black owned ones. You know, whatever your preference is, you can go out there and find deep conditioners that are protein based that you can incorporate into your regimen. If you'd like to try a DIY, you can check out my DIY protein or custom protein treatment, which actually allows you to customize it depending on your porosity. I've got the formulation in the description box of that video. Definitely check it out. I know that I say this all the time and you guys are so tired of hearing it, but it's so important that when you build your regimen, you build it holistically. So it should essentially encompass everything, a holistic view of your hair care. And you know, things like protein treatments are essential, especially, okay, if you are high porosity. And so we can all have like nice, moisturized, luscious hair happening. Okay, so tip number three, and I saved the most important for last, but when you have high porosity hair, pH is so important. You have to pay attention to the pH of the products that you're using. Essentially, you guys need to stay away from products that have a high pH, okay? Anything that is alkaline will further help to lift your cuticles, okay? Let all that moisture out, let all that hours of deep conditioning out, let all that good time you had watching Girlfriends out. Not really. But yes, anything that is alkaline will further help to lift, okay? To lift that cuticle layer, it will further help to make your hair dull. So this is why sometimes you use certain products and by the time your hair dries, your hair looks dusty and you're wondering why your hair looks so dry. It feels dry, it's extra crispy, it's literally done absolutely nothing for you. And that's probably because that product has a pH that does not agree with the porosity, okay, of your hair. Can I get an amen, please? Somebody. Amen. Amen, or thumbs up the video, because I know you know what I'm talking about. There are certain products, you use it, and literally you're wondering if you even washed your hair at this point, because your hair looks so dry. And that's because the pH, girl, guy, person, okay, this pH is not for you. God did not create you to be in these high pHs. No, we need to stay neutral. Staying in this pH range not only helps the cuticle to stay closed, therefore leading to happier, healthier hair, but it also acts as an acidic environment and prevents things such as fungal infections and just bacterial growth on your scalp. I can't stress this enough. It's really important for you guys to check the pH of the products that you're using. A great way for you to follow this up on your wash day is actually for you to do an apple cider vinegar rinse. Apple cider vinegar rinse can be slightly controversial because a lot of people do not use them appropriately. You have to dilute that. You have to dilute it. I cannot stress. It has to be diluted. However, there's so many brands now that are selling apple cider vinegar rinses that you can just buy off the shelf and use, and those have the correct pH balance. So I hope these 3 tips have been helpful. I really want you guys to take these 3 things. So these 3 things that I came to tell you, okay, I really hope that you guys can incorporate this into your lifestyle, into your hair journeys, and I promise you, once you work these things out, once you can safely say, yep, I have high porosity, okay, and I do protein treatments appropriately for my porosity, and my hair is pH balanced. Once you have these 3 things on lock, I promise you, come back to my channel, go here and watch that video on my moisture routine. Apply that moisture routine to your hair, and I promise you, there's no way you're gonna come back and tell me that it did not work. I promise you. I promise you. If you don't have high porosity, these tips are still essential. It's important to check the pH of your products. pH balance, staying within that pH balance helps everybody. For me, because I do have low porosity hair, I can actually afford to use products that are slightly more alkaline. Products that are too acidic, of course, cause my cuticles to be shot too tight. So I can afford to move up, right, into the slightly more alkaline product range. But it's important. We all need to know our porosity. We all need to know how pH affects that porosity. We need to know how elasticity and protein affects that. It's an ecosystem and everything works together. I hope you guys found this video helpful as always. Give it a thumbs up. Like it. If you're wondering why is she doing VPN sponsorships, girl, I'm trying to keep my lights on. So that's it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. I'll see you in my next one. Mwah. Bye. Jesus. Be a microphone, something.